I used to think that native speakers of Italian talked so fast, unbelievably fast, but eventually I realized something surprising. The problem wasn't them. The problem was my pronunciation. Hi everyone, it's Alex from Alex Be Teaching. Today I want to share something that completely changed the way I learned languages and something that most English learners never realize. Improving your pronunciation massively improves your listening. So it's not about learning more vocabulary, it's not studying grammar, and it's not listening harder. It's your pronunciation. When I discovered this while learning Italian, everything became easier. Real conversations, YouTube videos, films, podcasts, even different regional accents. And the exact same principle applies to learning English or any language that you want to learn. So in this video, I'm going to break down how I realized pronunciation was the key, which pronunciation problems were blocking my understanding, and techniques I used to fix them, and how you can start improving your pronunciation today. So let's get into it. Part 1, my mouth was blocking my ears. This was the biggest breakthrough for me. When I was learning Italian, I couldn't hear certain sounds clearly because I wasn't producing them correctly myself. And English learners experience the exact same thing. Here are 5 real examples that English learners struggle with. So example 1 is did you becomes did ya. Learners expect 2 separate words, but actually native speakers blend them together. Did you eat becomes did you eat. Did you see it becomes did you see it. If you've never said did ya, your brain doesn't recognize the sounds, so you can't understand someone else saying it. Example 2, going to becomes gonna or going to. So it becomes one word again. We blend the sounds. Textbooks teach going to, and often you hear going to in recordings. But real native speakers use either gonna or going to, which is still a blended sound, even though you can hear the t in it. If your mouth never learnt it, how are you supposed to recognize it? Your ears won't hear it. Example 3, vowel confusion. So we'll look further into this in this lesson. But an example of this is ship versus sheep. I had a similar issue with Italian vowels, and English learners have it too. Ship is a short vowel sound, and sheep is a long vowel sound. It's a short E and a long E. The difference in length changes the sound and the shape of your mouth when you pronounce them. To practice this, sit in front of a mirror and look at the shape of your mouth when you say the vowel sounds. I'll make a video of examples of all the vowel sounds in English, including the vowel blends. If you look at my mouth when I say ship, 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 and sheep, sheep, sheep. So I'm opening my mouth like that. Ship versus sheep. It's a longer sound as well as my mouth opening for longer. Example 4, want to becomes wanna or wanta. Still blended into one word, but not want to. You don't hear the T's twice, or you may not hear it at all, depending on where your native speaker is from. Textbooks write I want to go, but no one says that. Native speakers say I wanna go or I want to go. You might just hear the T, but it's become one word rather than 2 separate T's. When you can pronounce wanna or wanta, you can hear it and you recognize it in native speakers. So then you will understand what they're saying. Example 5 are weak forms. English has many reduced, weak little words. Cup of tea becomes cup of tea. You don't hear the of at all. Cup of tea. Cup of tea, if I'm saying it very slowly. But if I say it fast, cup of tea. Lots of becomes lots of fruit. Lots of fruit. You don't hear of at all. It disappears. Going to, gonna. The indefinite article a is also often weakly pronounced. So instead of saying they saw a friend, it would become they saw a friend. Saw a friend. So A changes completely in its pronunciation. It becomes weak. If you always say the slow, clear versions, the fast, natural ones don't register. Your mouth trains your ears, and if you don't produce the sound, you won't recognize it. This changed everything for me. So let's get into part 2. Techniques that transformed my listening. These are the exact techniques I used in Italian, and they work beautifully with English learners too. So technique 1, minimal pair training. This is honestly one of the most powerful exercises on the planet for learning languages. You practice 2 similar sounds side by side, and your brain becomes sharper. As I demonstrate these sounds, watch the way I move my mouth and try to practice in front of a mirror at the same time. Trust me, this makes a massive difference. And the more comfortable you are moving your mouth in this way, the easier it gets and the more natural you sound. So examples for English learners are th versus s or z. Thin, thin, thin versus sin, sin. My tongue there is very different. Thin, thin versus sin. Think versus sink. You need to be able to hear the differences. Those versus doze. Breathe versus breeze. And short versus long vowel sounds, you can use hit versus heat, bit versus beat, full versus fool, and then B versus V, berry versus very, base versus vase in American, or vase in English. L versus R, light versus right, glass versus grass, grass. And let's look at other long and short vowels. These are very common and important for learners. So ship versus sheep, we've looked at already. Bit versus beat. Live versus leave. Sit versus seat. I sit on this seat, or I sit on the seat. So I say it faster. Say it slowly at first, and as you feel more comfortable producing that sound, you can speed it up to sound more natural. And then versus a, often tricky for many learners. Pen versus pan. My mouth is much more open for the a. Pen, pen, pen. Pan, pan, pan. Bed, bed, bad. Bed, bad. So see the shape of my mouth. Men, man. Men, man. The man is in the bed. Versus R. This is a short versus a long vowel. Cut versus cart. My mouth is just open for longer. Luck versus lark. Bus versus bath. Then we have short and long O with or. This is very British contrast. So cot versus court. Stock versus stalk. Not versus naught. So I'm exaggerating still a little bit, but practice it like I'm doing it now, and then you can sound a bit more natural. Th versus sir. So we've looked at thin versus sin. Think versus sink. 3 versus C. Then the versus d. I will sometimes hear students use the d instead of the, because the is quite a difficult sound for them to make. It's not something it's normal in their language, either th or the. And it's common with other languages as well. They versus day. And remember that the is voiced. They versus day. Then versus den. If it's voiced, you can hear the vibration here. Then. Those versus doze. Then we have sh versus ch. Ship and versus chip. She versus cheese. Wash versus watch. B versus p. It's actually voiced versus voiceless. Bat versus pat. It's a little bit more aspirated with the p. If I just say the sound on its own, b, p, 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 b, b, you can hear the vibration here on the b. Berry versus perry. Cab versus cap. V versus w. So v versus w. Very common for the ESL learners to confuse. Vet versus wet. Look at the shape of my mouth. It changes completely. Vine versus wine. It's completely different. Vine. My teeth are on my tongue. Practice doing this in the mirror. Vine versus wine. Then you can see how different the sound is going to be. If you're confused between those sounds and you're not putting your mouth in that shape, you're not going to hear the difference. Veil versus whale. And ending sounds, so final consonants often are tricky. Cap, cab, bet, bed, and rice, rise. Rice is no voice, rise. You can hear the voice there. The vibration, if you put your finger there, you can feel. So I'm going to say one of these words and test you now. Which one do you hear? Which one am I saying? I want a ship. I want a ship. And if I say I want a sheep, I want a sheep. Which one am I using? So the first one was I want a ship. The second one was I want a sheep. Check it here. Did you get it right? Let me know in the comments. And if you're enjoying this lesson, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps. Thank you. Even 3 to 5 minutes a day works miracles. So in this first part, we've looked at blending weak forms and vowel contrasts. And you've seen why native speakers don't actually sound like textbooks. But here's the next big step. Even if your individual sounds are good, you still won't understand native speakers unless you understand how English is spoken in real life. Fast, connected, and reduced. And that's exactly what we're going to cover in part 2. I'll show you in part 2 how native speakers really link words together, reduce sounds, and even drop sounds completely when they're in connected speech, and why learning these patterns makes English suddenly much easier. So if you've ever thought, they're speaking English but I can't hear the words, part 2 is for you. Thank you for watching.